Okay, this video is going to be about adding and subtracting numbers that are written in scientific notation. So let's get started. So when you're adding or subtracting numbers in scientific notation, there's really two ways to do it. If you have the same exponent on your power of 10, this is really, really important. If this exponent matches, then you can just add these front two numbers, the 5.6 and the 6.3. You can just add those together. So this is 9, bring your decimal straight down, remember to line up your decimal. So I get 11.9, and then I just use, since they had the same power, I just use that power in my scientific notation. Now, that's pretty easy. There is one step to check at the end. Anytime you do operations with scientific notation, you want to make sure that your number is still in scientific notation when you're done. So for example, scientific notation says that I have a number between 1 and 10 times a power of 10. So this is in scientific notation. 6.3 is between 1 and 10. And 5.6 between 1 and 10. Now notice after we added those, the number we got in our answer is 11.9. So it's no longer correctly in scientific notation because when we added those numbers it went above 10. So we have to put it back into scientific notation. So I'm going to move this decimal once to create the number 1.19. So by moving that decimal once, I'm sort of taking a multiply by 10 out of this. It's like dividing this by 10. So imagine that I divided this by 10, but that 10 has to go somewhere, so that 10 is going to go over here. So I'm going to take a multiple of 10 or multiply by 10 out of that, and I'm going to put it over here. So since this went to 1.9 from 11, that's like 10 times smaller. I'll make this 10 times bigger to compensate. So this becomes 10 to the 9th. And this 1.19, or 1 and 1900ths times 10 to the 9, has the same value as 11.9 times 10 to the 8th. So it's still the same value as my answer was before, but now correctly written in scientific notation. So let me just say that one more time. Anytime you add, subtract, multiply, or divide in scientific notation, you have to make sure your answer didn't go out of being in scientific notation, which in this case it did. It was 11.9, that's too big. This front number of scientific notation always has to be between 1 and 10. So it's too big, so I'm just going to adjust the number and the power here. So I make 11.9 1.19, that's 10 times smaller. So it's like I took a multiply by 10 and I just moved it over here and made it, instead of 10 to the 8 or 8 tens multiplied together, I just have another 10, so I have 10 to the 9th. So let's do one more example. We'll do subtraction. And in this case, we're also going to show that what to do if these don't match. There's a couple different things we can do. I'm going to show one way to do this, which is to take them out of scientific notation. Do your subtraction or addition would be the same. You would do the same thing. And then put them back into scientific notation. So I'm going to convert each of these into standard notation. So to put 6.3 into standard notation, I take the number 6.3 and then I move that decimal 3 times in a direction that will make it into a number with a small value, right? We see this negative exponent. So it's going to be 3 this direction to the left. So I move it 3 times. So then this becomes the number 0.0063. So I'm going to write that down here, 0.0063. And then I'll do the same thing with 5.6 times 10 to the negative 4. I'm going to convert that. So again, start by writing this and leave yourself some space. I'm going to move the decimal this way 4 times in a direction that creates a number with a small value, all right? 0.00056, 0.00056. And this was subtraction. So now I'm going to subtract these. Notice I lined up my decimals. I'm going to subtract these numbers. I'll add a 0 there. So I have to borrow, make that 10, make that 2, and then borrow to make it 12. So 10 minus 6 is 4, 12 minus 5 is 7, 5 minus 0 is 5. I have these zeros. Remember, bring your decimal straight down, line it up. So this is equal to 0.00574. And so we did the subtraction, but it's in standard form, right? Not in scientific. So let's take it back to scientific notation. So let's rewrite it here again, just so we can have a nice clean example here. Now I'm going to, again, remember to convert from standard to scientific, I move the decimal until I have a number between 1 and 10. So you don't just go to the end, you go until you have a number. So here, not far enough. Keep going. Now I have 5.74, so that's the spot. So this answer in scientific notation would be 5.74 times 10, and then we need to choose the exponent. The exponent is always the number of times you move the decimal, and then you choose positive or negative for that exponent based on whether or not this number had a very small value or very large value. By that we mean it's 0.00, so a very small value. So this is a negative exponent. So we subtracted, right? We had 6.3 times 10 to the negative 3 minus 5.6 times 10 to the negative 4. We converted both into standard form because, unlike the example above, our exponents did not match. So if you just subtract these numbers, the decimals wouldn't line up and you'd have the incorrect answer. So in this case, we'll convert them to standard form. Then we can line up their decimals, subtract them correctly, and then we'll just take that standard form and switch it back to scientific notation since we were working in scientific notation.